Now on WDRB News at 11:30.
A major arrest at a South Louisville apartment complex. The way police say they caught up with an accused drug money courier.
Arrested twice within a week. The charges an aspiring rapper now faces after being arrested off River Road last night.
As long as the demand is there, the people who are selling it are going to continue to supply it. So we have to address both sides.
How state crime lab experts say Kentucky needs to tackle its drug problem.
Windy and much warmer today with high temperatures making it up into the 60s. We're going to keep that mild there for the weekend. Unfortunately, we have to add in the chance for some rain. I'll talk about when it arrives, plus when it gets cold enough that we could see some snow showers.
Good morning. Thanks for being with us. I'm Rachel Collier.
And I'm Tamara Evans. We begin with the WDRB News Alert. Pulitzer Prize-winning author Harper Lee has died.
Lee, who was 89, is best known for her book To Kill a Mockingbird. It has sold more than 10 million copies. Last year, Lee's publisher announced plans to print a manuscript long thought to be lost that she had submitted in the 1950s. Go Set a Watchman was released in July. Lee was born in Monroeville, Alabama, and lived there until her death. Neither services for Lee nor details about her death have been announced.
A man accused of killing 3 people in a South Louisville home appears before a judge.
WDRB's Satara Coote explains the charges the suspect faces. Satara?
George Slaughter pleaded not guilty when he appeared in front of a judge for a second time for murder.
Does he have the means to hire his own attorney?
No, you're.
All right, Mr. Slaughter, I'm going to appoint a public defender for you. Continue the case for a pretrial conference.
Judge Mitch Perry continued the $1 million bond set for George Slaughter. Slaughter is accused of shooting and killing Elizabeth Draper, William Neal, and Douglas Weber last weekend at a home on Wheeler Avenue. Slaughter killed another man in 2007. He was sentenced to 10 years in prison for manslaughter, but was released after just 5. Slaughter is charged with 3 counts of murder, possession of a handgun by a convicted felon, and tampering with evidence. The pretrial hearing has been set for March 25th. Satara Coote, WDRB News.
Satara, thank you. A quiet apartment complex in South Louisville becomes the scene of a major arrest. In a story you'll see only on WDRB, Valerie Chin explains how police caught up with an accused drug money courier.
After a lot of waiting and surveillance, the Bullitt County Drug Task Force moved in and arrested Ronnie Shoemaker, seen here in jeans and a neon shirt. It was at his apartment complex off St. Andrews Church Road in South Louisville. On Wednesday, we uncovered documents which say Shoemaker was a drug money courier. Investigators say Shoemaker was working for Chris Mattingly, who is already behind bars, indicted in September for conspiracy to distribute more than a ton of marijuana. WDRB traveled to Paris, California, where Shoemaker was arrested in May of 2014 with about $420,000 in cash. He's been under investigation for years. During his arrest, Shoemaker cooperated with law enforcement. A woman at the scene who was visibly upset about Shoemaker being handcuffed did not want to comment. Shoemaker was taken to the Grayson County Jail around 10 Thursday night and is being processed right now. That detention center often houses some federal inmates. Investigators learned about Mattingly and Shoemaker through wiretaps. Mattingly's attorneys are trying to get him released from jail and want the wiretap evidence thrown out. Mattingly is accused of operating as the head of a drug cell in Kentucky with ties to a Mexican cartel. Documents show the money from the sale of narcotics in Kentucky are eventually transported back into Riverside County, California, considered the drug hub of the U.S. Valerie Chin, WDRB News.
Investigators are not revealing the specific charges against Shoemaker.
An aspiring rapper is arrested for the second time in 1 week. The Bullitt County Drug Task Force arrested Jamel Bishop last night. He is now charged with trafficking marijuana and being a persistent felony offender. Last week, police say Bishop was found with 8 pounds of high-grade marijuana, $30,000 in cash, a Rolex, and $50,000 in gold jewelry. The task force also seized 3 vehicles. Coming up in our next half hour, how Bishop was able to get out of jail so soon, plus what we have learned from one of his friends. We are in for a real treat this weekend with warmer weather.
Rick DeLuca explains how long it'll last, right into April, right, Rick?
Yeah, right. I wish I could say that. Unfortunately, winter's not over, and there are some signs of much colder temperatures by this time next week. In the meantime, let's focus on the good stuff, the short term, the mild air. Look at these temperatures. We're at 62 degrees, But here's the thing, came in on these very gusty southwest winds. If you look at that tower cam long enough, you might get seasick going back and forth and back and forth. Southwest wind 23, but just gusted to 38 miles an hour in Louisville. So if you have any travel plans, you want to keep a tight grip on that steering wheel. 61 in PRP, 62 downtown, so we keep the mild temperatures around. 59 in Lanesville as well as Henryville, Munfordville, 61. Most locations warming into the upper 60s, maybe even 1 or 2 spots approaching 70. The sunshine will be fading away gradually, partly cloudy skies through around 3, 4 o'clock. Then we turn mostly cloudy for that afternoon, evening commute, but we're pretty much rain-free throughout much of Kentuckiana. Did include a small 10% chance in our northern counties for a brief spotty shower or a sprinkle late in the day, well after sunset. So it looks like the daytime hours are dry. Wind advisory in effect through 7 o'clock with high temperatures around 68 degrees. We're going to talk about the weekend forecast. We keep the mild there, but rain's going to enter the picture. I'll talk about when it arrives coming up in a few minutes.
All right, Rick, thank you. A popular shopping center in Louisville goes up for sale amid a lawsuit with its stores. This morning, we have learned Westport Village is on the market. It comes just 3 years after a group of Chicago-based investors purchased the property. In a statement to WDRB, Invin Trust Properties says it's adjusting its portfolio and looking forward to smooth transition with a prospective buyer. Nearly 24 Westport Village shops sued the owners in 2014, complaining of skyrocketing fees and lacking service. Today at 4, WDRB reveals the status of the suit and what a sale means for customers.
The mumps spreading at 2 Indiana University campuses. 4 people have the illness at IU Bloomington and 1 person at Indiana University, Purdue University in Indianapolis. Symptoms of the mumps include fever, headache, muscle aches, tiredness, and swollen and tender salivary glands under the ears. The university is telling people if you have symptoms, stay home and see a doctor. Butler University is now requiring all students and employees to receive booster shots against the mumps. A cab crashes into an apartment complex. It happened around 6:45 this morning at the Hampton Place Apartments in Louisville's Russell neighborhood. No one was hurt. The manager of the complex says the driver told her he was trying to avoid another car when he crashed. The cab went into the living room of one of the apartments. A man, his girlfriend, and their 2 children lived there. The man says his son was in the living room just a few minutes before the crash. An LMPD officer is accused of lying to a grand jury to get a murder indictment. Detective Scott Beatty testifying that a witness had positively identified Isaiah Jenkins in the case. Jenkins and Monye Haggard were arrested last year for robbery and murder. Police say the 2 killed 31-year-old Andrew Key Roper at the Russell Apartments on West Muhammad Ali Boulevard. Haggard took a plea deal for manslaughter and was sentenced to 5 years in prison. Jenkins' attorney says her client had nothing to do with the murder and was indicted because of Beatty's false, misleading, and calculated testimony.
A grand jury can't indict based on incorrect information.
Charges were dropped and Jenkins was released from jail yesterday. LMPD says Beatty will not be investigated because the department does not believe he gave false testimony. The Kentucky Senate advances a measure to create 2 kinds of marriage licenses in the state. One would say bride and groom, the other first party and second party. People getting married could choose which one they prefer. The county clerk's name would also not be on the form. The move comes after Rowan County Clerk Kim Davis refused to issue marriage licenses to same-sex couples because it conflicted with her religious beliefs. The bill now goes to the House. The U of L Athletic Association will meet today to talk about extending Bobby Petrino's contract. The head football coach signed a 7-year, $24.5 million deal when he was hired in January of 2014. Earlier this month, athletic director Tom Jurett said Petrino should get an extension because of his performance. The Athletic Association will also talk about adjusting ticket prices for football and men's basketball games next season. The meeting is at 2 o'clock this afternoon. Jamal Murray and Derek Willis lead UK to an 80-70 victory over Tennessee. WDRB's John Lewis explains how Willis overcame some pain for a career night.
Despite battling issues with both knees and back spasms, Bullitt East grad Derek Willis had a career night offensively. The Kentucky Wildcats get some revenge. They beat Tennessee 80-70, and they remain undefeated at home.
It did feel good. It did feel good. And then when you come down after jumping a little bit on your knees, it's like, don't even know if you really want to shoot after that. But I don't know, just trying to play, honestly. That's really it. The knees was like just crazy hurting. But then again, you just play through it, and it's just one of them things we're going to have to play through.
Tyler didn't play great today. 9 assists, 2 turns. He didn't play great today. He didn't play where he had been playing. But what's changed our team is Derek. It made us a totally different team. The minute we said, and then you say, well, why didn't you do it earlier? Didn't know. And when we went to it, it was obvious. Everybody could see. He changed our team.
5 games remaining in the regular season for the Kentucky Wildcats, 3 of those on the road, starting Saturday at Texas A&M. Reporting from Lexington at Rupp Arena, John Lewis, WDRB Sports.
We're following a developing story in the WDRB newsroom. Fire officials say a crane collapsed at the site of the East End Bridge construction.
The Harrods Creek deputy fire chief says no one needed to be rescued and no one was injured, but sources say there is significant damage. We have a crew on the way and we'll bring you the very latest on WDRB News at 4 and online, WDRB.com.
Kentucky takes on Planned Parenthood, what the state claims the clinic in Louisville did illegally.
I would say there is probably not a neighborhood in Jefferson County that's not affected by heroin use or heroin trafficking.
Tackling the drug problem in Kentucky, what local officers are doing.
Again, following this developing story in the WDRB newsroom, emergency crews are responding after a crane toppled over into the Ohio River at the site of the East End Bridge construction.
The Harrods Creek deputy fire chief says no one needed to be rescued and no one was injured, but sources say there is significant damage and we do have a crew on the way and we'll bring you the very latest throughout this newscast and on WDRB.com.
Which drugs are creating the most problems in Kentucky?
Only on WDRB, we break down what data from the state crime lab show.
What is the #1 drug you all have been seeing?
Our drug of most concern has been heroin.
A drug that has been on the increase dramatically statewide. This information from Kentucky State Police shows that heroin cases skyrocketed starting in 2013, with the number of submissions sent to the state labs nearly doubling, and the numbers increasing even more in 2014.
We're now running around 4,000 cases a year in heroin.
The KSP labs analyze about 23,000 drug samples each year, but statewide, heroin is second on the list.
It falls behind only methamphetamine.
So where is heroin most common? This 2014 map gives you a better look. There are so many submissions in Louisville that the tracker covers up the entire city.
Heroin is primarily in the Lexington, Louisville, and Covington areas. So there's a lot going on in Louisville.
Sergeant Tom Chardine with LMPD, who sometimes works undercover and asked to be concealed for this interview, says there are several reasons why heroin became a top drug locally. He says state lawmakers enforced legislation to tackle the prescription pill issue years ago, but the crackdown left addicts looking for another drug of choice.
And they went to a cheaper product, which turned out to be heroin, and a more available product, which also turned out to be heroin.
If you think it's not happening in your neighborhood, Sergeant Chardine says think again.
I would say there is probably not a neighborhood in Jefferson County that's not affected by heroin use or heroin trafficking.
LMPD is also keeping track. This is a chart of known heroin charges locally in Louisville. Last year, this number continued to increase. Chardine says LMPD is targeting the problem, going after top-tier traffickers and working with surrounding agencies.
We realize we cannot arrest our way out of the problem. If you arrest every addict that you run across, it's just going to fill the jail, and that not necessarily in a good way.
He says officers are looking at other ways to address the issue.
If we can maybe get some people either through drug court or through other programs into treatment, or get them into voluntary treatment, or through the use of Casey's Law, get the families to help seek treatment.
Saying this could help addicts and bring down the numbers both locally and statewide.
Because ultimately it's a supply and demand issue. We have to, as long as the demand is there, the people who are selling it are going to continue to supply it. So we have to address both sides.
It takes the state crime labs about 30 days to get items tested and back to police. The state lab in Louisville can take twice that long because of staff shortages, but officials say that should be better by the fall. A search warrant leads to 2 arrests, what police say they found when they searched a home on Duncan Street.
And Senator Rand Paul returns to Kentucky. The issues he says will consume the attention of Americans this year. Rick?
The mild air sticks around this weekend, but unfortunately, it also comes with a good chance for some rain. I'm going to talk about when it arrives, plus when it gets cold enough that we could see some snow showers.
We continue to follow this developing story in the WDRB newsroom with a crane that's toppled over into the Ohio River at the site of the East End Bridge construction.
The Harrods Creek deputy fire chief again says no one needed to be rescued, no one was injured, but sources say there is significant damage. WDRB's Gilbert Coursey just made it to the bridge in Prospect, and he did email us video showing the crane in the water. You can see it right there. Gilbert is there at the scene gathering more details, and of course we will bring those to you during this newscast, and we'll have the very latest online, WDRB.com.
And no confirmation on this, but just a hunch from me that I do think it could be because of the wind. We've had wind gusts up to 38 miles an hour here in Louisville. Wind advisory for all of Kentucky, and through 7 o'clock, wind gust at or near 40 to 45 miles an hour. So especially traveling areas like 71, 64 later on this afternoon, make sure you keep a tight grip on that steering wheel. Here's a look at the satellite and radar combination. We have a bunch of clouds floating on by. Partly cloudy skies before turning mostly cloudy late in the day, but otherwise we're dry. We're getting squeezed between high pressure and low pressure, creating that wind tunnel effect. Those winds also delivering the warm temperatures, finally cracking up into the 60s, some spots, maybe even near 70 later on this afternoon. Now heading into the weekend, we keep the mild air, especially on Saturday. We're at 58 degrees at 10 o'clock, around 62 as the game starts. Cards taking on the Blue Devils, and then 66 at 2 o'clock with partly cloudy skies. Saturday ends up dry and mild. Sunday, clouds and the chance for some showers does return. So we're at 62. You can see that tower cam sort of dancing around in the wind. Dew point 32 with that southwest wind at 23 miles an hour, but at times it has gusted up near 40. Temperature-wise, it feels really nice out there aside from that wind. 60 in Shelbyville, 61 in E-Town. How about Munfordville and Litchfield, both checking in around 62. So tomorrow, we'll see those winds gradually relax. And you'll notice today, we're going to have to deal with the worst of it. So windy and warm, temperatures into the upper 60s, clouds gradually spilling in. There's a 10% chance for a spotty shower up north of the river around, let's say, 9, 10 o'clock. Otherwise, we're dry. A few more spotty showers during the overnight hours, especially down across southern Kentucky. The weekend starts off kind of cloudy. You're going to wake up Saturday morning, look out the window and say, oh, another day like this? Nope. Those clouds break down. We get a return to some sunshine by the afternoon with temperatures around 66 to around 69 degrees. Now, the clouds fill back in Saturday night, a couple of showers around 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, but Sunday morning, a whole different story, waking up to a good chance for some heavier bursts of rain, and then cooler temperatures as we head into early next week, sort of reality check with numbers back into the 40s and the 50s. So your forecast tonight, cloudy and cool, not too bad. Go ahead, turn off the furnace. Temperatures down to around 51 degrees with just a 20% chance for a couple of showers. Those winds gradually relax, so the weekend starts out with some sunshine, still mild, 69 degrees. Sundays when we have that good chance for some rain, 63, and then we cool down here on Monday. Partly cloudy skies, 52. Another system impacting our weather Tuesday into Wednesday and next week. Looks like mainly rain, but could be cold enough that could mix with a couple of snow showers, high temperatures in the low 40s before we're rolling back into the middle 40s by next Friday.
And we continue to follow this developing story. A crane has toppled over into the Ohio River at the site of the East End Bridge construction.
Our Gilbert Coursey is in Prospect, Kentucky at the site and shows us what's happened.
This is Gilbert Coursey. I'm on Transylvania Beach here in Louisville at the site of a crane collapse at the East End crossing. This has just happened in about the last 20 minutes or so. You can see the crane has come down over the bridge supports and knocked out the walkway up there, and now the crane itself is in the water. Again, this is just happening. We're the first news crew on the ground here. The Eastern Bridge crossing has been a major story in our area. $1 billion poured into a new connection between Prospect, Kentucky and Utica, Indiana, and this appears a significant setback. More information as I get it.
And we'll be getting more information, as he said, throughout this newscast and bringing more pictures and more video to you. Southeast Christian Church is expanding.
The plans for a traditional style chapel near the Blankenbaker campus.
We continue to follow the developing story at the site of East End Bridge construction, where a crane has toppled over into the Ohio River.
And we do have some new information from the WDRB newsroom right now. A spokesman for the East End Crossing says a boom crane suffered a mechanical failure and fell into the river while removing temporary supports. We are told one worker did fall into the river but was quickly pulled out. We continue to follow this story and have a crew at the scene, and we'll bring you the latest information during this newscast and on WDRB.com.
And our Gilbert Coursey is at the scene. He's been sending us emails. You can see my email right now. And this is, he's been talking to witnesses out there, gathering more information about what has happened.
Loud noise, turned around and looked, and that's when I seen the tip of it coming down, hitting water.
So a frightening scene for people living out in the Prospect area. Gilbert Coursey again out there at the scene, sending us more videos, more pictures, and we'll bring them to you throughout this newscast. Right now, we'll take a look at what's trending now on our website, WDRB.com. Louisville Metro Police say a cheap synthetic drug is turning users into zombies. The drug is cheap and easy to get and has frightening and deadly effects on users.
Accused of using racial slurs and a pole with a Confederate flag to bash a car. The incident allegedly involved students from Bullitt East High School. And 15 years after retiring, Denny Crum talks about his U of L future and more to sports journalist Eric Crawford.
To read these stories, go to WDRB.com. Here's a look at what's making headlines now on WDRB News at noon. Arrested for the second time in a week. What investigators say they uncovered about this aspiring rapper.
Windy and much warmer today with temperatures up into the 60s. We're going to keep that mild air this weekend, but unfortunately, we have to add in some rain. I'll talk about when it arrives, plus when it's cold enough that we could see some snow showers.
What Southeast Christian Church is planning with another expansion.
They were found in the cold, trapped near a dumpster. The happy ending for these two puppies.
Thank you for staying with us for WDRB News at noon. I am Tamara Evans.
And I'm Rachel Collier. We continue to follow the story developing in Prospect, Kentucky at the site of the East End Bridge construction where a crane has toppled over into the Ohio River.
And our Gilbert Coursey is there at the scene. He continues to send us video and photos from the scene. A spokesman for the East End Bridge crossing says a boom crane suffered a mechanical failure and fell into the river while removing temporary supports. We are told one worker fell into the river but was quickly pulled out. Again, Gilbert Coursey at the scene right now. He's been speaking with witnesses, and we're going to take a listen to one of the videos he just sent back to us.
He's been sending us pictures and video through email, talking to people at the scene, trying to get some more information about what caused this. Here's one witness.
Tell me what you saw and what you heard.
I was walking by the window up there and heard loud noise, turned around and looked, and that's when I seen the tip of it coming down, hitting water.
And again, Gilbert Coursey at the scene. We are continuing to follow this story on the Prospect side, also heading to the Indiana side to see what we can figure out there, what we can see from that angle as well. But majority of this going on the East Louisville side of the bridge construction.
We'll bring you much more throughout the newscast and on WDRB.com.
A local rapper is arrested for the second time in a week.
WDRB's Stefan Johnson tells us why Jamel Bishop is back in jail. Stefan.
Well, good afternoon, guys. Right now, Jamel Bishop is locked up behind me here at Metro Corrections on drug charges. But these are not new charges. This all stems from an arrest we told you about last week. The Bullitt County Drug Task Force arrested Bishop late last night. Again, it happened at the River Park Place apartment complex off River Road. Bishop is now charged with trafficking in marijuana and being a persistent felony offender. Last week, police say Bishop was found with 8 pounds of high-grade marijuana, $30,000 in cash, and a lot of expensive jewelry. Despite all of that, Bishop was released from jail after paying a $1,000 cash bond. A friend of the aspiring rapper tells WDRB News that Bishop was actually planning to leave this morning for a trip to Disney with his girlfriend. That same friend tells us that Bishop has been indicted by a grand jury. Meanwhile, the sheriff's office says Bishop is part of a multi-state marijuana distribution case. Live at Metro Corrections, I'm Stefan Johnson, WDRB News.
Stefan, thank you. Senator Rand Paul says it's not likely he will vote for President Obama's eventual nominee to the U.S. Supreme Court, and one reason is coal.
WDRB's Lauren Smith tells us Paul made the comments in Bardstown as part of a statewide blitz.
Paul was here in Bardstown as he puts his focus on winning re-election to his Senate seat after dropping his White House run. The crowd nearly filled the depot of my old Kentucky home dinner train. This is one of more than 24 such gatherings Paul is holding across the state this week. As for the big issue of the day, Paul told me he can't imagine voting for a nominee that President Obama puts forward for the U.S. Supreme Court.
We've been so devastated from the executive order regulations on coal that we don't think are legal, and we're concerned that he will appoint the nominee that will decide whether they're legal or not. And so I do think it's a conflict of interest. He does have the right to do it, but also the Senate has the right to check and balance him by approving or not approving.
Paul also talks about transitioning from a presidential campaign and whether he'll endorse a candidate. We'll have that at 4. In Bardstown, Lawrence Smith, WDRB News.
We're going back out to East Louisville now, where our Gilbert Coursey is following the story of a crane toppling over into the Ohio River.
Gil.
Line 2. Stand by.
Good afternoon, guys. I'm coming to you from Transylvania Beach, where I can tell you that a crane has collapsed on the East End Bridge project. I'm stepping out of the way so you can get a better look. Jeff, can we zoom in here? You can see that the crane is bent over the frame of the support on the bridge. It is mangled and broken and down into the water. A worker here on site told me that there are no injuries, and when I asked what happened, he said one word: the wind. Now, there is a resident who lives as close to the bridge's project as possible. The bridge is literally his neighbor, and he was here when the crane came down. Jeff Cooper, I want to bring you in right now. Can you describe what you saw and what you heard and when this all happened?
It was about 45 minutes ago, I guess. And I just walked by the window, heard a noise, turned around, looked, and that's when I seen it hitting the water.
So you actually saw the crane going down into the water? What did it sound like?
Oh, it was a rumble, and then it just rumble, more rumble. You know, it went on for a few seconds.
Workers on site, what was going on?
Oh, I was busy watching it. I wasn't watching the workers.
All right. We know that the Eastern Bridge is a $1 billion project. Jeff Cooper, thank you for your time. It's creating a new tie between Prospect, Kentucky and Utica, Indiana. It's slated to be finished this year. We don't know what kind of setback this will be. We are expecting to hear from bridge project officials in the day. Guys?
Gilbert, thank you for your report and for your pictures and video. Southeast Christian Church is expanding again. This time it's for a traditional style chapel near the Blankenbaker campus. Church leaders say it will be called the Chapel in the Woods. It will have traditional church pews, stained glass windows, and could be used for weddings or funerals. It's expected to open next spring. Southeast Christian has 4 church campuses. A 5th campus is under construction in LaGrange, and another expansion is coming to Elizabethtown. I say bring on the spring-like weather.
Rick DeLuca explains how warm it's going to get this weekend, Rick.
Last weekend we were talking about snow. This weekend talking about 60s to near 70. Yeah, huge changes across Kentuckiana. Starting to feel those effects outside right now, but it all comes with the wind. Look at this tower cam dancing around that southwest wind, which is sustained at 23, but at times gusting between 40 and 45 miles an hour, which is low end tropical storm force winds. So watch out for that. Keep a tight grip on the steering wheel, but temperatures don't feel bad. We're at 64 degrees across the area, which is 21 degrees warmer than it was 24 hours ago. We'll keep it mild there through the weekend. This cold front does sort of sink in, providing us with more cloud cover through the afternoon, but high pressure keeps us mainly dry. This front will allow a 20% chance for a spotty shower or 2 overnight. The weekend starts out dry, but the second half of the weekend, a whole different story. 65 degrees at 1 o'clock, 68 by 3. That wind advisory posted through 7 o'clock. High temperatures around 68 to 69 degrees. We're going to talk about the weekend forecast, exactly when the rain arrives, plus when it gets cold enough that we could see some snow showers.
All right, Rick, thank you.
2 men face charges in connection with an online child pornography investigation. Kentucky State Police executed a search warrant at 59-year-old Anthony Crockett's home on Duncan Street last night. They say they found 20 computer files related to child sexual exploitation. Police also arrested 39-year-old John Pierce at the home. They say they found 1 file of child exploitation on a device that belonged to him. In court this morning, Pierce was released on his own recognizance. Bond was for Crockett was set at $5,000 cash.
Attorneys for former Subway pitchman Jerry Fogle are facing a deadline in his appeal. Fogle was sentenced to more than 15 years in prison. He pleaded guilty to possessing child pornography and paying for sex with underage girls. Attorneys must file court documents detailing the grounds for his appeal by today. The sentence by a federal judge was longer than the maximum term prosecutors agreed to pursue as part of his plea deal.
We'll be right back with another check at what's happening in the east end of Louisville at the site of a crane collapse in the Ohio River. We are following a story this afternoon. A crane recently collapsed at the site of the East End Bridge construction.
WDRB's Gilbert Coursey is at the scene. Gil.
We are on Transylvania Beach on the Kentucky side. This is the side of the new East End Bridge crossing. Behind me, you can see that a crane at the construction site has collapsed, bent over the frame of the new East End Bridge crossing and toppled into the water. Now, this all happened about 45 minutes ago. A witness tells me, a neighbor saying he heard rumble, 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 and then a loud splash. A worker here at the site tells me that no one is hurt, but when I asked him what happened, he said just one word: the wind. It is gusting very strong out here, white caps on the river. This bridge project is expected to be completed this year, a new connection between Prospect, Kentucky and Utica, Indiana. The crane looks like it was above the bridge deck. This steel area that you're seeing up here is where they're connecting the bridge deck. The steel or the cement will lay over on top of this. The bridge came down over the supports, if you will, and has been wrapped around now the steel. Bottom line, there is significant damage out here. No workers have been over there on that site in about the last 5 minutes. Emergency crews are here, but again, we're told there are no injuries, and we are expecting to hear from bridge officials about exactly what happened out here and how much of a setback this will be. For now, reporting live on Transylvania Beach, Gilbert Coursey, WDRB News.
Gilbert, thank you. He's been getting more information out of the scene. Our newsroom has been making dozens of phone calls. We've also learned that one worker fell into the river but was quickly pulled out. Again, no one injured. That's the good news. And that this was a mechanical failure causing this, also with wind.
And of course, we will continue to follow this story all day long. We'll be right back.
Well, if you left your trash cans out, all I have to say is good luck finding them when you get back home. Winds have been gusting between 40 and 45 miles an hour, which is low-end tropical storm force winds. That's why we have that wind advisory in effect through 7 o'clock this evening. A 50-50 weekend on the way, which means half of it looks good, half looks bad. Both days do have mild temperatures, but one day we had the chance for a couple of showers, and that's going to be aimed on Sunday. Back to reality next week as we have some cooler temperatures which are on the way, which means get out and enjoy the mild air. Even though it's windy out there, it is mild with temperatures climbing all the way up through the 60s. The reason it's so windy, high pressure, low pressure kind of squeezing together, and it creates this wind tunnel effect. But it comes in from the south and southwest, and we all know that's where the warm air hangs out. This cold front will slide in here later on today, bringing increasing clouds and the chance for a spotty shower tonight. Otherwise, not a bad idea to go ahead and get that car washed from all that gunk that's been building up on it all week. The only chance that we have for rain, the good chance at least, will occur on Sunday, a 60 to 70% chance for some scattered showers. Outside right now, it is windy and mild. 64 degrees your temperature, a southwest wind at 23, but there you go. Whoa, baby. Wind gusts between 40 and 45 miles an hour, and that will last through at least the evening hours. So definitely, if you have any travel plans, keep a tight grip on that steering wheel. 61 in E-Town, 63 in Brandenburg, Lanesville 61, both Litchfield and Munfordville around 63 degrees. So partly cloudy skies for the next couple of hours, turning mostly cloudy by 5 o'clock, but mainly dry aside from a spotty shower well north of the river. Now overnight, cloudy, cool, temperatures back through the 50s. Winds do gradually relax, so not as much wind here on Saturday. Still mild with temperatures up to around 66 to 68 degrees. We're going to start with some cloud cover, break apart those clouds, giving way to intervals of sunshine through the afternoon. Now Sunday, we're going to see cloudy skies and a good chance for some rain, especially during the morning hours. Look at the slug of rain moving through around 7 o'clock. The afternoon, not a complete washout, but still the chance for some scattered showers roaming the area, with temperatures for one last day into the 60s before we cool back down into the 40s and the 50s next week. 51 degrees tonight. Go ahead, turn off the furnace, open up the windows. Cloudy and cool with a 20% chance for a spotty shower or two. Saturday, the pick of the weekend by far. Partly cloudy skies around 69. Sunday, good chance for showers, still mild, 63. On Monday, we dry out, but cooler, 52. And then Tuesday into Wednesday, watching a storm system that could bring us some rain, possibly ending or mixing with a little bit of snow, 42. By next Friday, partly cloudy with a high of 44.
Thank you, Rick. We're learning more about what caused a crane to collapse and fall into the Ohio River this morning at the site of the Easton Bridge construction.
WDRB's Gilbert Coursey was the first reporter at the scene. He joins us now with details. Gil.
Hey guys, a construction worker told me that a strong wind gust took down this crane, and I want you to listen to how windy it is out here. I've been out here for about 20 minutes, and the wind, it comes up, it swells, and it starts blowing debris and things around in the area. And I can give you an example. The wind's blowing right now. Here's some leaves in my hand, and you see that it's just gonna blow them right away. Take a look at the damage behind me. The crane fell about 45 minutes ago. It wrapped over a support for the new Easton Bridge crossing. Mangled steel now down into the water itself. This has been a billion-dollar bridge project in the talks, in the works for decades. A new connection between Prospect, Kentucky and Utica, Indiana that is expected to be completed later this year. We do not know what kind of significant setback this will be. And the picture here has changed in just about the last 5 minutes because I am now seeing a collection of workers on the support that is adjacent to the work area itself. Those workers were not there about 5 minutes ago. From what I can see, I'm about 50 yards away. They appear to be surveying the damage. I can show you some of the damage in addition to the down crane itself. Look up towards the bridge support itself. The crane is wrapped around it and has taken down a walkway. Now, a neighbor, a witness who was here about 45 minutes ago when this all happened, told me that he heard rumble, 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 and crash. And Jeff Cooper, that witness, that neighbor, also echoing that it's been a gusty, windy morning while these guys were out here working today. The big headline out of this, not just the damage, but that as far as we know, there has been no injuries and no one hurt. I do see crews from the Harrods Creek Fire Department out here. They're just really watching the site, and I'm seeing more workers beginning to go back on to the site itself. We're going to be out here for the duration today. We'll bring you any updates as it comes. Keep us on Facebook, keep us on Twitter, and WDRB.com. For now, live at Transylvania Beach, Gilbert Coursey, WDRB News.
All right, Gilbert Coursey keeping us all updated. Thank you, and we will be right back.
We continue to follow this developing story, a crane collapse at the site of the Easton Bridge project. We will follow this throughout the day, and today at 4 o'clock we'll have more on what caused this to happen.
And of course, Gilbert Coursey at the scene, he was saying wind is the big problem out there today. You agree?
Yeah, that's my hunch. Wind gusts between 40 and 45 miles an hour being recorded at the airport, so chances are by the water, yeah, you could definitely see some stronger winds. Wind advisory through 7 o'clock. Any travel plans, tight grip on that steering wheel. The winds do relax tonight. Spotty shower in a few locations. The weekend starts out mild. Pretty nice on Saturday, partly cloudy into the upper 60s to near 70. Second half of the weekend, not so nice. Clouds and showers, temperatures around 63. Some cooler air does arrive next week with temperatures in the 40s and the 50s.
All right. Thanks for being with us today. We'll see you back here at 4 o'clock.
If they're anything like